Hello everyone, I'm Miceman391, and I am here today to give a response to a video series about world building that is up on my good friend Hedgehogs channel, and there's something in particular that I wanted to talk about and address that I noticed in her videos, and that's scale. There's something I've noticed about Hedgehogs worlds, and that is that they tend to be big. Really big. Huge, even. And this isn't a bad thing. A world can be big and still be interesting. But as I was watching her latest world building video, I found myself thinking something. This all seems very intimidating to a new writer. And so today I thought that I would not only talk about her style of world building, but also the alternative route that I often found myself going down, which is a world of a much smaller scale. But before we begin, there's something that I want to say right off the bat, and that's that I really like Hedgehogs videos, and I consider her my friend, and please don't take this as me saying that I'm a better writer than her, or that my style of world building is superior. A smaller world is not necessarily better than a bigger one. They both have their pros and cons. And while I often find myself preferring the smaller scale work, please feel free to write whatever kind of story you prefer. I'm not saying my style is superior to Hedgehogs. I'm just trying to present an alternative for all the aspiring writers out there. With that out of the way, let's get started. When writing my stories, I tend to find myself writing my fiction on a tiny scale, sometimes having the entire story take place in a single location. Here are some of the places that a select few of my short stories partake in. Do you notice anything? A neighborhood, a submarine, a parked car, a garage? They're all extremely small. Now, I haven't seen all of Hedgehog's videos, but I have noticed the trend that she prefers to go for the big, all-encompassing style of story, with lots of details about the different races and the history of the world, and how the technology progresses, all that sort of thing. When one starts to bring in different continents and races and parallel universes, oh my, that can be very intimidating for a new writer who looks at you and says, how am I ever going to do all that? You see, when it comes to world building, you don't actually have to build a world, you see? Your world can just be a single room, and that can have just as much merit as a world as expansive and detailed as, say, The Lord of the Rings. There are some differences when it comes to writing worlds like this, though. Some unique challenges that must be overcome if you wish to write in this style. For one thing, a lot more of your writing is going to have to be character-focused. Having a smaller world means that you're going to have less world to describe, obviously. So to make up with that, you should attempt to go into detail the way your characters not only interact with this small slice of reality, but also the small details that might get overlooked in a larger or more broad-scale universe. Take, for example, this short excerpt from one of my own short stories. The front door was right there. I knew it was just around the corner. I glanced around and noticed that the hallway I had come to rest in had only 3 exits to it. One led back the way I came, and no known or unknown force in the cosmos could make me go back there. One, I knew, led back to the front of the house, from which I had first entered here. The third exit was a door, at the opposite end from where possible escape lay. You'll notice that I went pretty in-depth on the layout of this house. I really try to give the impression that you're in this hallway, and that you're looking at all these doors. After all, it is one of the main locations of the story, and one where the protagonist makes an important choice. Due to the nature of this story, I was able to go in-depth and give as much description of this single hallway as I wanted, something that I don't think is normally possible for a large-scale tale. At least, not if you want to avoid your story feeling at least somewhat bloated, like Lord of the Rings, in my opinion. This, I feel, is the main draw of small scale, the possibility presented of being able to give a lot of details of the seemingly mundane, and to really bring the reader in depth to it. But keeping the story small does not only apply to a location, it also applies to character. To write a good story, one does not need to go in depth on the descriptions of the characters themselves. In fact, I tend to find that I prefer, personally, to keep physical description at a minimum. The reader, at least in my style of writing, does not need to know the character's exact height, or weight, or even ethnicity or gender. but rather their own internal thoughts and emotions. To bring up another example, in my short story, The Thing in the Garage, the main character is never even named, and their gender is only mentioned once, which was so subtle that some people didn't even pick up on the fact that they were indeed a woman. Despite the fact that none of these important details were mentioned, the reader still gets a good feel for not only the protagonist's feelings, but also the way they think and their flaws. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that aspiring writers do not necessarily have to give us the big picture, but rather the small details that really form the way the character thinks and interacts with the world around them. So, in conclusion, what am I saying? Am I saying that I'm a better writer than Hedgehog, and that my style of world building is better than hers? Of course not. If you love to come up with an entire history of the various races and technologies and how they all interact with one another in your world, then go for it. But if you're just starting out, don't be afraid to keep your story small scale, as that can be just as interesting as anything else. I hope this helps any aspiring writers out there. I know this was a pretty short video, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out there. I hope you all appreciate it. See you next time. Bye bye.